Hello honeys! Today we're talking all about Dreamy Crown. From its real-life inspirations to chords you probably never even heard of, I found everything there is to know. There will be major spoilers for Aikatsu and minor spoilers for Aikatsu on Parade, so if that's okay with you, let's get started. Dreamy Crown is introduced as a successor to Angel Sugar, but all of its descriptions throughout the series are surprisingly vague. Suited for independent girls, this brand incorporates cute elements with designs that have just the right amount of sweetness. The sweetness inherited from Angel Sugar combined with Dreamy Crown's sharp use of colors makes for some wonderful designs. The designs are cute and feminine, yet refrain from being too sweet. So what's up? What's the deal with the sweetness element? Well, as we discussed in my Angel Sugar deep dive, Aikatsu's first protagonist brand was based on a mix of sweet Lolita fashion and girly fashion. Within Japanese fashion, sweet refers to a youthful, hyper-feminine aesthetic. Reducing the sweetness essentially means adding more mature and more masculine elements. Another description of the brand reads, while it is primarily a cute brand, it integrates mature colors such as navy blue into its designs as accents in order to pull out the full extent of its cuteness, so it's perfect for girls aiming to have that independent feel. We see this with the way Dreamy Crown has still retained its sweet Lolita fashion inspiration but switched out the girly fashion for trad fashion. If girly is a broad umbrella style incorporating modern feminine styles, trad is a broad umbrella substyle incorporating vintage masculine styles. Trad fashion includes British, American, and even French vintage styles. There are a lot of intricacies, substyles, and cultural confusion within this fashion, but the important thing to note is that Dreamy Crown uses a mix of Western styles to achieve a more grounded, elegant image. But why would they do this in the first place? Production on Dreamy Crown was likely first started in winter of 2013, when series director Ryuichi Kimura says that the decision was made to change the main character of the franchise. Production continued through the following year, and the first Dreamy Crown cards were released in October of 2014. So what else started in winter of 2013, and what was happening in Japan in 2014 that might explain this shift? When I was doing research for this video, I found a small clue: this 2014 Disney toy catalog. Up until this point, I'd combed through all of my resources and couldn't find an explanation for why Dreamy Crown had such a saturated color palette compared to Angel Sugar. Every magazine I found was still featuring mainly pastel and neutral colors, especially for young girls. I thought, wow, this definitely looks a lot closer to what ended up in Aikatsu that year. And then I remembered what happened in 2013 and 2014, and the data only confirmed my suspicions. Frozen. Frozen was released in the US in November of 2013 and in Japan in March 2014. It was the most successful film in Japan since Spirited Away in 2001, and it sparked a boom in popularity for Disney princesses in Japan in 2014, as we see in the toy catalog from before. Aikatsu took full advantage of this princess craze, most obviously in the name of its new protagonist brand, Dreamy Crown. The design of the princesses was a big part of their appeal, with darker, more saturated colors and a medieval fantasy aesthetic. In order to fit this trend, designers reduced the amount of Lolita fashion inspiration in Dreamy Crown and turned to a complementary Western style instead of the Japanese fashion magazines they've been pulling from. Trad fashion is historical, elegant, and expensive, all of which fit the royal theme of the brand. But it goes even deeper, because it's possible that the entire story system within Aikatsu is based on the renewed popularity of Disney fairy tale characters in Japan. Ariel, Cinderella, Princess Aurora, Rapunzel, and Snow White all experienced much higher popularity at this time. Of course, this would have only been the inspiration for the story system and the romance and dream story chords. Aikatsu took care not to emulate Disney too closely, and as a result there's only a small overlap in the colors, themes, and characters used between the two franchises. The Aikatsu team was most likely still referencing Japanese fashion magazines to help blend the three styles together. Gothic and Lolita Bible was probably still the biggest influence, as well as Fudge, a trad fashion magazine mostly known for hiring Western models. Dreamy Crown is also still similar to Angel Sugar in that most of its Lolita fashion inspired chords would fall under casual Lolita fashion execution. In fact, casual brand Jane Marple's 2014 collection is the best example of the Lolita trad mix that the Aikatsu designers were going for. Although in their original Lolita fashion context, these pieces would have been more accurately referred to as classic rather than trad. But that's a whole other conversation and we are moving on. Dreamy Crown's headquarters are Dreamy Lodge, a cabin located next to Dreamy Lake. This area is shown to be within running distance of Angel Mountain and is potentially depicted on the old map we see of Angel Sugar. Right here maybe? In episode 178 we see Ichigo and Akari row across the lake, then cross a river, and then run directly to Angel Mountain. There are also significant similarities between the map illustration of Angel Mountain and its design in this episode, although this connection has not been officially confirmed as far as I've seen. Whether or not this is its exact location, it would make sense for Dreamy Lake to be on the grounds of Angel Mountain since Asuka is shown to be closely involved in the founding of Dreamy Crown. We already know that Angel Sugar owns a large forested area surrounding Angel Mountain, and it would have been easy for Asuka to set aside some of that land for Sena's new brand headquarters. Sena even tells Akari that Dreamy Crown doesn't own the land, and calls Asuka when Akari asks to harvest a Christmas tree near the lake. Dreamy Lodge itself houses Sena's home and studio, with Naoto confirming that Sena lives there full-time in episode 150. It is only reachable on foot, similar to Angel Mountain. Because this is a new brand, Sena is the only staff member. He does appear to work with a variety of companies and manufacturers for the marketing and distribution of his designs, but he is never shown to have any in-house employees or work with any specific contractors. One of the more mysterious aspects of Dreamy Crown is its mascot, Dreamy Puppy. It is a clear parallel to Angel Sugar's Angel Bear, but it only appears twice in the anime, a few times in official promo art, and on a few pieces of real-life merchandise. Its first appearance is as a plush on Akari's bed in episode 133, but is never seen there again. It also appears as a mask in episode 145, where it is called Dreamy Puppy for the first time. However, it appears that neither Sena nor Akari are particularly interested in the character since these are its only appearances. Within the context of the story, I'd theorize that Sena might have felt an obligation to emulate Angel Bear when he was first establishing his brand, but only licensed the character out to a few merchandising companies before focusing on other business opportunities. More realistically though, Dreamy Puppy was part of a small mascot character campaign by Aikatsu's merchandising team that just wasn't continued past a few initial releases. Sena is an interesting character because there seems to be a very split perception of him, both among the anime staff and its fans. Here are a few quotes from staff members to explain the situation. It was Bandai's request to have a boy designer. However, since this is an idol work, I decided to introduce Sena as a partner who grows with Akari, rather than focusing on romance. I was worried what to do with the sense of age, but I wanted him to be close to Akari, so I asked the character designer to create a design with the image of a college student who had just graduated from high school, younger than Suzukawa. I think the process of Sena and Akari working hard as designers and idols was very refreshing. When I started Aikatsu, I studied a lot of works for little girls, but many of them were about romance. That's why I thought it might be a good idea to include a little bit of excitement. But when you depict a romance between a man and a woman, you run into the question of whether it's about a man, or whether the fans are important. The position of for whom and why are you an idol becomes blurred, and it becomes difficult to write stories. So without love, I drew Sena as a partner for Akari to reach the top. Sena was a little older than Akari, and he was someone that junior high school girls would look up to. I was drawing with the image of a grown-up boy around 18 years old, but as I continued to draw, I thought, to become a designer in his teens, he must be a cocky man. I was thinking of Seiji Yamasawa from the movie Whisper of the Heart. Sena's appearance was a request from the women involved in the project. There are viewers who would be happy if there was a cool boy. I thought that the idols lined up together would look even better. However, I, Director Kimura, and Mr. Kato are all men, so I was very careful about what kind of distance I should let them say. I built a relationship with Akari while listening to the opinions of female writers and staff members. The general consensus is that the anime staff wanted Sena to be close enough in age to Akari that they could share similar experiences that would advance the plot. However, it's clear that there was an internal demand for some kind of romantic tension between the two. As a result, the official position of the anime is that Sena and Akari have a primarily platonic and professional relationship with a few exciting moments sprinkled in as fan service. Whether you agree with this reading of their relationship or not, there is still a lot of depth to their dynamic as depicted in the show. Tsubasa Sena is the youngest designer in the Aikatsu franchise, with his implied age being around 18. He says that he's had an interest in clothing since he was little, and when he started wanting to make them himself in middle school, he became fascinated by Angel Sugar's dresses. He was able to start an apprenticeship there, where he worked directly with top designer Amahane Asuka. He trained with her in middle school and high school, where he met Asuka's granddaughter Madoka and developed a close relationship with the Amahane family. Asuka describes Sena as a prodigy with a relentless work ethic, which explains why Asuka took him on as a student, as well as his rapid growth during his apprenticeship. Sena says, "I became her disciple, and came to love her angel dresses made with lots of skill and care. It was tough to make my own, but the enjoyment I felt more than made up for it. There's no end to what an idol can wear, so you can give wings to any ideas you have." While studying under Asuka, Sena developed a great respect for her and her muse, Hoshimiya Ichigo. After seeing Asuka overcome a creative block through the power of a single frame photo of Ichigo, he thinks, "She made Amahane-sensei, one of the greatest designers in the world, give such a passionate speech. Hoshimiya Ichigo, one day I'll design my very own dress for you." Around the time that Sena finished high school, Asuka decided that he had reached a professional level and encouraged him to start his own brand. In his own words, his concept was, "A crown filled with my dreams. I wanted to make a top brand with the regal flair to match a crown." He and Asuka then began preparing the launch of Dreamy Crown, with Dreamy Lodge being named its official headquarters. When everything was finalized, she told him, "Your real battle starts now. You are yet to be a genuine top designer. It is only when you complete a premium dress that you can be proud of that you become a true top designer." Sena would keep those words in mind when starting his first projects as an independent designer. He even kept his own frame photo of Ichigo as inspiration. If his graduation was in the spring, which is the case for most Japanese high schools, Dreamy Crown's founding would have taken place over the summer, with his first Dreamy Crown designs being made in the fall. This is why he is first shown participating in the Halloween-themed collection with Monster Cat, alongside Angel Sugar's Girly Devil. This is an important debut for him because the collection is advertised in magazines and is part of a prize pool for an idol competition, with the winning design being showcased in a televised performance. This is a big deal, and Sena watches the broadcast intently. He is surprised to see Monster Cat as the winning design, but quickly refocuses on monitoring the performance. Following this victory, an article is published about Dreamy Crown and the mysteriousness of its designer. Apparently, no one has disclosed any information about Sena besides his name and affiliation with Angel Sugar. Sena appears to be very cautious in this early stage of being a brand owner, as he doesn't release any more public information about himself or his designs. Instead, he focuses on fulfilling Asuka's expectations by working on his first premium dress, Odette Swan. He either ignores or fails to receive communication from Starlight Academy about a student interested in a premium wear consultation. Judging by the fact that Sena isn't surprised to see Akari show up at his studio, just a little annoyed, I'd say he was probably ignoring the school. Sena is especially annoyed that Akari seems surprised by his identity, but he still invites her in to be polite. He doesn't seem interested in her, and although he remembers her performance, he doesn't seem particularly impressed by it. He tries to brush her off, emphasizing that he's busy with a serious project, and explaining his focus on quality. He says, the first premium dress that a top designer makes has a huge effect on their reputation. Only those who can complete a dress they can be proud of can truly call themselves a top designer. Sena has a very hands-on approach to fashion, going as far as foraging for materials in the forest around Dreamy Lake. He's not afraid of trial and error, and is willing to repeat the iterative process for as long as necessary until the finished design meets his standards. He doesn't expect Akari to understand this, but he still proudly explains his design philosophy. When she insists on helping him so that the dress can be finished in time for a concert, her persistence gets through to him. He lets her help, even if it is only to get her out of the way. However, as Akari sticks through the iterative process with him and goes farther and farther out of her way to help him, Sena begins to respect her resolve. After a full day of working together, he opens up to her about his apprenticeship experience at Angel Sugar. He says, "That's why this premium dress must be decisive, and I'm sure you've heard this. To idols, cards are life itself. I'm the one creating that life for you idols. I can't afford to compromise." Although he'd estimated that he still had a month or two of work left on Odette Swan, Sena is able to finish it that night with Akari's help. He happily gives it to her as a reward for her effort, both of them agreeing to make this a decisive step in their respective careers. He attends Akari's first solo concert, which doubles as the debut of his first premium design. After the performance, Sena seems pleased, but still not extremely impressed by Akari's idol skills. He is surprised to see that Asuka also attended the concert and is inspired by her words of encouragement. Akari also seems inspired, but he only briefly acknowledges her before leaving. During the Aikatsu movie, Sena learns that Asuka is making a Sleeping Beauty dress for Ichigo's Great Star Mia Festival concert. He says, "I couldn't help but want to make my own, a dress that could stand alongside hers." He visits Starlight Academy to observe Ichigo and Akari training together and decides to make the Sleeping Aurora cord for Akari as a companion to Ichigo's dress. He attends Ichigo's concert and sees Akari bring Mizuki to the venue before heading backstage to wait for her. When Akari is called up for the encore performance, he gives her the cord and tells her it's the chance of a lifetime. He leaves without watching her performance this time, even though Asuka has just arrived. The next time we see Sena is during a creative block, when he accidentally pulls an all-nighter and happens to catch Akari's weather segment early in the morning, which she is still quite new to at this point. He's amused when she makes a small mistake, but quickly turns serious when the broadcast cuts to coverage of his upcoming premium dress. He seems to have a much more public presence now that Odette Swan has established his reputation as a designer. Sena can't find a fairy tale story that fits his spring concept and falls back on Asuka's main inspiration, Ichigo. He heads out to the city and runs into Akari on his commute. Although their one-way conversation gets cut off, he feels motivated when he then sees an ad for Akari's weather segment and is reminded of her ambition. The next morning, he watches the segment while sketching and is inspired by the story of Thumbelina and the image of Akari standing amongst giant tulips. He ends up finishing this concept and takes it to Angel Mountain for Asuka to review. His goal is still to have Ichigo wear the design, so he's excited when she happens to be visiting Asuka at the same time. He describes his design to both of them by saying, "Thumbelina may be small, but it's like she holds spring inside her. I designed this to fit her bright and cheerful personality." However, before Sena can even offer the dress to Ichigo, she praises it for being a great fit for Akari. It appears that Sena hadn't even acknowledged Akari as his inspiration, as Ichigo's comment is what makes him realize her importance. The next time he runs into Akari, he eagerly gives her the Thumbelina bouquet cord and tells her that she is the only idol fit to wear it because he couldn't have completed it without her. Sena actually sticks around for this performance and even compliments her afterward. He seems to have finally accepted her as his equal and tells her, "A designer and an idol are a team. If both of us use the very limits of our power, we'll be able to fly even higher. But if you start to falter, don't expect any more dresses." Sena gains even more appreciation for Akari when she and her friends ask to camp next to his studio. He offers to let them use his studio, and when they reject his offer but are still struggling to set up camp, he intervenes and helps them. He ends up helping them cook too, mostly out of concern for their safety, and reminds them that they are competitors when the subject of the Starlight Queen Cup is brought up. Sena tries to go back to work after this, but is intrigued by the rounds of friendly competition going on outside. He seems touched by the fact that the girls are all still wholeheartedly supportive of each other despite acknowledging each other as rivals, although he still pretends to be inconvenienced by their antics. When Sena hears that Madoka and Akari have formed a unit, he uses his knowledge of both of them to design unit dresses for Skips. He shows up to their debut concert to hand-deliver the Dream Sky and Sweet Sky cords, but it is unclear if he stayed to watch since he isn't shown during or after the performance. At some point after this, Sena begins studying wedding dresses in preparation to make one himself in the future. He runs into Akari while doing so and proudly agrees when she asks him to design her future wedding dress. Sena would next begin expanding his social circle by accepting Johnny's invitation to the summer festival. He is mostly shown hanging out with Madoka and Rin, but he finds Akari later and asks for her opinion on a dreamy puppy mask he picks up from a vendor. When she approves of it, he gives it to her and takes her Ozora mask in exchange. Next, Sena tried out acting in a supporting role for a Starlight Academy drama special. He mostly worked on off-screen projects during this time, notably rejecting Tsubaki's request for a premium dress. Once he wraps up one such project, he attends one of Akari's performances and is approached by Tsubaki again. He is impressed by her newly improved work ethic and humility and encourages her this time. Another side project Sena takes on is redesigning the doll version of Girly Violin presented to him by the toy company Dandai. He works on it for an upcoming commercial shoot, and although this isn't something that would usually be allowed in real toy production, he says he's made it as close to the original as possible. This shows his protectiveness over the quality of his work and its reputation in the public sphere. Sena's next big on-screen project is a new premium dress meant for Akari's Starlight Queen campaign. He ends up getting sick while working on it and tries to work through the illness. When Akari calls him to discuss the dress, he tries to talk about it with her, but she hangs up after hearing that he has a cold. He falls back asleep and is surprised to see her show up at his door after he wakes up. Although Akari had intended to take care of him, Sena doesn't quite trust her to navigate his kitchen and ends up doing most of the cooking for her. He insists on talking about her Starlight Queen cup dress afterwards, but falls asleep while she talks about her ideas for her performance. As he drifts off, he thinks, "Back when I first met Ozora, yeah, she came in like a storm. And when I told her I didn't have the berries to make dye for the ribbon, she said, 'I'll get those berries for you. When you complete the dress, then please let me wear your premium.' And like she said, she really did go out there and help me complete the Odette Swan cord. That was the first premium dress for both me and Dreamy Crown. When I said, 'One day I'll become the #1 designer,' she said, 'Me too. One day I'll be the #1 idol.' That's right, that was our team's dream." Sena appreciates Akari's ambition the most, but when he wakes up and sees that she's tucked him in and cleaned up the kitchen for him, he seems touched by her caring nature as well. He thinks to himself, "Ever since I met Ozora, I've come to love making dresses more than ever before. Amahane-sensei has brought life to countless breathtaking dresses over her career. While you can't ignore Amahane-sensei's own talent, a huge part is due to her perfect combination with Hoshimiya Ichigo and Amahane Madoka. We are the same. The idol, Ozora Akari, and Dreamy Crown are the greatest combination. If Ozora can become the Starlight Queen, that'll be a giant leap toward our dream of being the #1 idol and #1 designer. I know I can create a dress befitting the Starlight Queen." The next day, Sena has settled on a concept for Akari's dress and calls to thank her for her help and inspiration. When she rejects his offer to tell her what kind of dress it will be, her new level of trust in him signals a greater degree of closeness in their partnership. Because Sena has committed to this dress being his masterpiece, he is extra critical of his ideas and struggles to make progress with the design. When Akari shows up at his studio while he's working, he invites her in and helps her get settled, but quickly resumes his work. He only takes a break when he's interrupted by tea being ready, at which point he shows Akari his cloudy blue sky design concept. He became dissatisfied with it after comparing it to Akari's blooming performance, believing he could still push the design farther. When Akari leaves, Sena is impressed by her confident commitment to her training and her words of encouragement. He reassures her that he'll make her the ultimate dress and reflects on the design in his head. It's true that Ozora's dress was at one point complete, but no more. Seeing her growth on stage firsthand, I realized that it no longer sufficed. I need to make her a dress she can grow into in the time before the Starlight Queen Cup. It needs to be a much grander dress. Akari's work ethic, ambition, and optimism successfully inspire Sena, and he works on her premium dress until the last possible moment. He races to deliver it to her in time for her performance, and proudly hands over White Sky Veil despite being a bit annoyed by her pointing out that he's out of breath. He tells her, "It is inspired by you, a blue sky and white clouds, but I felt it was missing something. Your visit yesterday helped me figure out what it was. It was a much happier feeling than what you get by looking up at the bright sky. Honestly, because you came yesterday, I could make this without any doubts. I think this dress is perfect for you." When Akari compliments the dress, he says, "Now I can say with confidence that it's complete." And when she happily thanks him, he responds, "Idols seriously are amazing. One smile and I'm full of energy." When Akari wins the Starlight Queen Cup, Sena is proud of both her and himself. When he sees her at the after party, he seems a bit nervous to admit that he already wants to make another dress for her, but he shakes off this nervousness quickly and heads off to his own interviews. His status as a top designer has definitely increased at this point. We only see Sena a few more times in the anime. In the final episode, he hosted checkpoint for Ichigo and Akari's marathon race. When asked to comment on Akari's chance of winning, he says, "She's pretty bad at giving up. I'm sure she'll pull it off somehow." In Aikatsu on Parade, Sena has two brief appearances. He attends a brand collaboration fashion show and sees Akari modeling for My Little Heart. After the show, he tells her that while the show was enjoyable, she still looks best in his designs. The very last appearance from Sena is when he participates in the designer scavenger hunt event with Akari at the Aikatsu Grand Sports Festival. I want to talk briefly about Akari's relationship to Dreamy Crown because she is so closely tied to the development of the brand. Sena essentially builds Dreamy Crown around her, and we don't see him design for any other idols besides Madoka via skips. Akari and Sena's names share thematic similarities as well. Ozora meaning large sky, Akari meaning light, and Tsubasa meaning wing. Sena has no specific meaning. This is why sky, feather, and bright themes are commonly discussed between them. They create the image of a bird flying up into a bright blue sky. Akari was initially an Angel Sugar fan before Monster Cat caught her eye for its playful cat-based details. She then became interested in Dreamy Crown and asked Headmistress Orihime to arrange a premium dress consultation with its top designer. When that request is unsuccessful, she chooses to go see the designer directly. Because Akari's knowledge of premium dresses came mostly from Ichigo, she was expecting some kind of test. She hoped to prove herself through a trial similar to Ichigo's rock climbing, and so when Sena presents her with obstacles, she is more than willing to overcome them. Sena gives her the criteria being decisive, and she runs with it, meaning the challenge of finding materials for the dress in order to finish it in time for her first solo concert. She's happy to have a clear goal and relentless in her attempts to reach it. She says, "Wanting to wear Sena's premium dress is a part of it, but I also understand his desire to be decisive and step up." Akari never takes her success with Sena for granted, seeing each dress she receives as a result of her hard work. In her own words, just because I got these two, Odette Swan and Sleeping Aurora, doesn't guarantee that I'll get this next one too. I'm gonna bust my butt to get that new premium dress. When Akari meets Sena by chance, she immediately seizes the opportunity to talk to him, and when she fails to catch his attention, she only becomes more determined to reach out to him. Seeing that Sena has already finished his next premium dress makes her worry that he's already chosen someone else to wear it, and she heads out to ask him for it right away. As their partnership progresses, Akari continues to be happy to meet Sena's challenges and sees them as motivation for her growth as an idol. She is shown to have both his work phone number and his cell phone number, showing their close relationship. Despite this, she is also happy to share her love of Dreamy Crown with others like Tsubaki. She may feel competitive when it comes to obtaining premium dresses, but she doesn't feel entitled to them and actively supports fellow fans of the brand. When Sena gets sick, Akari sees reaching out to and caring for him as a part of her effort toward becoming a top idol, since he is such a big part of her career. Her feelings seem to change when she sees him fall asleep during her visit, and her expression turns affectionate on her way home after they become closer. She clearly admires him and appreciates getting to see a more vulnerable side of him. After this, Akari continues to bring Sena food to help him with his designing process, and treats him with friendly professionalism since he is so focused. It's notable that she chooses to bring him a pre-prepared meal this time, rather than attempting to cook for him again. She makes her visit brief to avoid distracting him, and worries that she wasn't able to help him since she couldn't contribute any design expertise. When Sena finally expresses the fact that Akari helps motivate him, Akari seems surprised to learn that she has a strong impact on him. She maintains her friendly attitude toward him even after her Starlight Queen victory, and looks forward to their continued collaboration as they both pursue their goals. Although there's no doubt that Sena would have continued to be a hardworking and successful designer even without Akari, she's able to push him toward a more positive and collaborative approach to his work. He ends the show with a much more open attitude toward others, and accelerated growth thanks to his partnership with her. In a world where he had continued to seek Ichigo's approval, with Tsubaki as his main supporter, the brand may have ended up in a much different place. Within the Aikatsu universe, Dreamy Crown is known as a spin-off brand of Angel Sugar, sharing the older brand's cute typing. It has a growing public presence, but it's too new to even have a constellation dress. Still, the brand has been able to participate in many romance and dream story collaborations. It has a total of 53 coords from the original series, 19 of which are shown in the original anime and are covered in detail in my Dreamy Crown ranking video. I've had some requests to update that ranking with any new coords covered in this video, so I'll put a ranking number for each new coord on screen if you're interested in that. 5 more coords were added in Aikatsu on Parade: Lady Pink Crown, Kitty Tricky, With Dream, Cherish Girly Lavender, and Navy Bell. Of these, you may remember me mentioning in my Dreamy Crown ranking that Tinkle Bell had an unreleased blue variant. Navy Bell is the official release of that variant. It's unclear if this design was originally an animation error, or if it had been intended to be released years prior and just got missed somehow. The mobile game Aikatsu Photo on Stage also added 58 new coords to the brand, doubling the overall total to 116. Just like with Angel Sugar, these designs are all super creative thanks to the removal of animation restrictions. I'm currently working on Angel Sugar Photokatsu ranking, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing one for Dreamy Crown too. I put up a few of my favorite designs on screen, but there's so much more to talk about with these since they're so extravagant. I can't list every Dreamy Crown coord here. You can find a full list on the Aikatsu and all Aikatsu Wiki pages linked in the description, but I can provide a list of the most notable ones. Dreamy Crown's main dream story is Town Musicians of Bremen, which I've recently learned is referred to as Bremen March by the series, and it also has coords under Pinocchio, Arabian Nights, and The Wizard of Oz. Its main romance stories are Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, and Thumbelina, and it also has coords under Snow White, Cinderella, and The Nutcracker. Dreamy Crown has 7 premium airs: Odette Swan, Sleeping Aurora, Thumbelina Bouquet, Girly Violin, White Sky Veil, Lady Pink Crown, and With Dream. Its boom coords are Ruby Blossom for jewelry and White Santa for party deco. It has several fever coords: Tinkle Bell, Grace Girly, Shining Dreamy Line, Citrus Orange Heart, Girlish Check, Cute Date, Royal Sweetie, White Santa, Dreamy Star, Snow Illusion, and Ruby Blossom. And finally, Dreamy Crown has also released a collaboration coord, Princess Palace, with former Rev from DVL member Hashimoto Kana. Now, although the brand's concept has stayed the same through all 3 Aikatsu properties it's included in, there are some differences in its execution depending on the property. This is mostly due to there being separate teams working on them, which don't usually adhere to the same design philosophies. This is why my current ranking series only includes the original series anime coords, because they're all done by the same team and conform to the same aesthetic criteria. For example, the Aikatsu Wiki coords tend to have more exaggerated silhouettes with longer or wider skirts that sit a little lower on the waist than the original generation's designs. We can see this if we compare Lady Pink Dream with Thumbelina Bouquet and White Sky Veil. The silhouette is similar across all three, but the original series is clearly following a different set of design rules that leans more into shape and texture variation. If I were to summarize the differences between the three versions of Dreamy Crown, I'd say the original series is more interested in a wealthy, high-class aesthetic. Aikatsu on Parade brings a higher level of fantasy, and Photokatsu most embodies the official series guidebook description. Many designs use pink and other girly colors with large ribbons, crowns, and keys for a playful look. If you love Dreamy Crown, make sure to check out my Dreamy Crown ranking next, and look out for my Retro Clover / Sakura Okada ranking next week. Bye bye!
4番アマフアなでしこ